Hi there, taking a look again at some of the PSN network games. This is called Warp. I really enjoyed this one, so I thought I'd make a bit of a longer one here. And again, just some dust observations, some interesting chats we had last night around the link between Eve and Dust, and more from the commercial model point of view, so bear with me, this might be a bit of a longer one today. So this is the Warp. It's again, I'm just surprised at the quality of the games on the PlayStation Network. I guess it's because, you know, I mean, when you're used to Steam, you're going to get your kind of 8-bit character style, you know, games in that. Whereas everything I've so far found on the PlayStation Network, bar a few, has been of pretty good quality. And this game particularly, again, it's a frivolity. It's a game you play on the sofa. But I'm just amazed at how good the production values of it were, and how addictive it was while playing it. So basically, yes, let's get some Dust talk done. We've played Dust obviously extensively over the last few days, last few weeks in fact, and I think it's just getting better and better. And again, I know I keep saying this, but please stick with it. If you try it and you die every round, and you don't kill anything, stick with it. It's a game where you have to find your skill base, okay? For example, yesterday I started using one of the rifles, again, obviously not going to break the NDA, which at the start of the game I was terrible at, and I never got any kills, and yesterday I was absolutely clearing up with it. So I think it's maybe partly psychological, I think it's partly obviously skill-based as well, so I really would stress stick with it, and you know, and it'll come through. We played as a group again, and I can think of no better game that I've played where the group play is so satisfying. If you set the group up really well, so each has their individual role, it's really nice. It works very well. So some of the observations from yesterday's play was very much... there's a little bit of cheating going on in the game. I know, shock horror. Apparently there's a few rifles in the game that are supposed to be kind of one-shot wonders. You know, you kind of... you know, English army rifle style guns, and with certain hardware you can actually make them fire repeatedly very quickly. So, you know, there's a few things in the game I think that are like that. Again, it's not going to break the game. One of the observations I'd probably make is the community of Dust is very much like Eve. I think they like what they like and they hate what they hate. So yeah, I think they're a pretty tough bunch to crack, but they also know quite, you know, they're obviously quite good consumers, if you know what I mean by that. They understand that, you know, they're buying something, and there is a high level of expectation for it, which is nice to see, because I think again, Eve has been, dare I say, directed through its 10 years of life by a very active community who pretty much are vocal and will say what they think. With Dust, I think we've got the same thing, and apparently a game called Mag has or is closing, so a lot of Dust players are going to come from there. So already there's a different community kind of kicking in. Now, what's interesting to see is that there is quite a an interesting party lines being drawn between Dust and Eve at the moment. And if you look on some of the forums, which are pretty painful at the moment, I must admit, you know, there's a lot of emo rage over, you know, oh well, I don't want Dusties in my corp channel and all this nonsense. And it's a bit weird actually, because obviously I would have thought that Eve players would have seen that Eve really isn't, well, I guess it's not really growing and it's not really going anywhere. So Dust is kind of the expansion that will be there to maybe not save Eve, but certainly drive it in a more commercial direction. I know one of the things we'll talk about in just a moment is microtransactions, which I know obviously tried to be put into Eve, but again, if you look around, currently most MMOs are going free to play, and I think with Eve still being a subscription model, it's quite interesting seeing the kind of vested interests that are being put. So I think a lot of the emo rage that we're seeing on the forums is actually maybe slightly driven by an agenda. So what do I mean by that? Well, currently I think if you want to play Eve, you have to have a lot of ISK, because you've got to pay, you know, unless you want to pay your 15, 16 bucks a month across one character, you're going to have to obviously buy a game time card, which is about 600 million ISK, something like that. So basically what you have is, you know, you're getting a position where, because Dust will be free to play, I think that's probably making some Eve players quite nervous. The whole monocle gate thing that happened some time ago in Eve is maybe testament to that, because everybody really didn't want this kind of pay to win stuff. Now, I don't think Dust really is pay to win. Yeah, you can buy maybe better equipment, but it doesn't mean it's actually going to be, it's a skill thing. It's not necessarily a tactical thing. So you can buy a better, gun, but if you just skill up for another week or day, you'll still get the same gun. So this is why I think it may not be too much of an issue. I think a lot of the challenge at the moment is that, frankly, EVE as a subscription-based game is a kind of limited lifespan thing. With Knights of the Old Republic now going free to play, it's difficult to see how you can really continue to be a subscription-based game. Just think of it: if you had no subs, you would probably have numerous characters. You would be, you'd be playing quite a lot more with more people and so on. So the reason I don't think it has at the moment is obviously because of the community for one, but it's also probably the infrastructure as well, because obviously there's only really at any one point 30 to 50,000 people playing EVE. So I think it's all really kind of linked to that. And there was quite an outcry when microtransactions were becoming a possibility, mostly from the Deep Space community as well, because I think they have the most to make from not having real money, from having microtransactions because of real money trading. I think that's still, when I was running my own corp, we were in a Deep Space Alliance, a pretty big one. It was pretty obvious that pretty much most of the Deep Space Alliances were doing RMT. Most of the Alliance leadership were pretty much subsidizing their lifestyles. Their actual jobs were amazingly playing EVE. So, I think it's just something that really is going to be quite a big change. I honestly don't see how CCP and EVE can survive being a subscription model for the rest of its life. I think if it went free to play, I think microtransactions by their own commercial model is just such a great way to do it. Proved by Dust, and I hope Dust is maybe the beginning of this, because it isn't an I win button. It's maybe one of those things where if you want to have a really nice collectible item that's just a little bit better, then maybe that works. But so far I've not seen anything that's really game breaking. But having said that, you never know what they're going to introduce. So we'll see how that one pans out. So in terms of Dust rumours, obviously there's a fair bit of speculation out there, but I think the guiding principle of what they want to try and do is that, you can effectively, take contracts. You can also then basically take over planets and actually start to, reap them for your own benefits. And I think that's something I really quite like the idea of as well. And I think there isn't going to be a PvE, a player versus, I guess, environment aspect to it as well, where basically rogue drones and things like that are going to be, effectively shootable. So that's pretty cool, and I think that's going to be interesting, because again, CCP, they really do kind of get the whole empire building piece. So really hoping that they allow that. Now this is again, it's going to be interesting, because how is that then going to integrate into EVE? Because in theory, if a mercenary corps can actually just dominate a planet and take it, how does that then fall into the wider game of EVE, particularly in 0.0, and so on. So I think there's a fair bit of scope. I just get the impression that basically Dust is going to be an emergent product eventually. It will be released, but it will be released maybe with 50% content, and then over time they'll start to release more and more things. And this again, hopefully will be driven by the fact that the player base can decide if and where what happens, to a degree, and I think that's quite a nice idea. Okay, so this is just a reminder, playing Warp. Want to talk very quickly about the PlayStation Network. It is something that if you're going to get a PlayStation, you should probably look at getting PlayStation Plus. It's actually a subscription service, so that obviously makes a few of you probably quite nervous, but when you actually look at what you get, I think it's £30 for a year. And what it gives you is access to games. What I mean by that is I think every month or every 2 months or even maybe longer, I'm not too sure yet, but basically you're given 10 games that you basically can download and play for free. And as long as you're subscribed to PlayStation Plus, you can play them forever. So usually when they do this, it's usually pretty rubbish games. But I've just basically took a look myself, and they've got some really, really good games. Bulletstorm, they have Just Cause 2, and Motorstorm Apocalypse, and others. And basically, it's a really good way to get quite a lot of game for not too much money. It is a bit of a crapshoot, is in that you're not sure what you'll get. There's a few games on there that just would not interest me. There's Little Big Planet 2 and other things like that. But I just thought it was a fantastic deal, to be honest. So I think if you are going to get a PS3 to play Dust, don't just play Dust. Have a look around, because if you subscribe, I mean, what, 30 quid a month is not a lot, and I think what you get for that, and again, you will get games released to you over that period as well. Eventually, you're going to find a couple, 3, 4, 5 games that you really like, and then you've made your money back. As long as you stay subbed, you've got those games forever. So I just thought that was an absolutely fantastic deal, and well worth looking into. Okay, so just again back to Dust, just a thing to bear in mind. One of the things that we've noticed they're doing quite a lot as well is they're doing kind of events. Obviously the tournament took place, and I missed that by about a day. But what they did yesterday was they did double skill point day, and this was pretty evident because we were playing, and usually where we would get, say, 10k skill points, we were getting 30, 20, 30, and 40 at some point. So it's pretty impressive actually what they're doing every day. So if you are playing Dust, try and keep a view on the forums on just what's going on. Yesterday we had some really good battles. Again, I think, try not to break the NDA too much, but I think one of the key observations is vehicles are done really, really well. They're not overpowered, so if you get into a tank, which is not a surprise, there's tanks. Yes, they're incredibly powerful, but unfortunately, there's always going to be an Achilles heel, and that's a particular type of gun. So I think there's a real, there's a real focus on, basically there is no I win button in the game. So yesterday we're having some real fun basically in a squad. Vehicles particularly work when you've got a squad, so if you've got aerial units and things like that, it's just so satisfying basically skimming over the landscape with your crew and basically just laying into anything that moves. It's done quite well, so basically I think skill is going to be a major part of the game. So you're going to get luck obviously involved with it, but if you're a pretty skilled player, you're going to win probably more than half your gunfights. But again, it's not like, dare I say, Eve, which is going to be something where your fit of the month is the only thing that you'll use, and blah blah blah, and that's quite a nice thing, to be honest. Just a reminder as well, if you do need a corp or an outfit to roll with, then please join R1. There'll be a link to it at the end of the video. We've got a lot of people joining, but I think there's something wrong with the corp chat window. So a lot of people are saying that that sometimes they're in corp and they're saying they can't see anyone in there, and then all of a sudden we have like 10, 15 people in there, and so on. So it seems a little bit buggy at the moment, but that's to be expected. But yeah, again, I can't imagine how on earth you could play Dust without at least playing with some buddies of some kind. I guess that's kind of the motto of it, really. And currently everything's kind of limited, so you're not going to get completely steamrolled by the best players in the game. I'm sure at some point it will become where it'll become open, where you can basically join any game you like, and it will be then corporation v corporation. I think that is in now, but it's obviously ISK based. But I would say that so far it's not looking, it's quite open. Do you know what I mean? The worst you'll ever be in a position is you'll be rolled by like 4 people tops. So that's pretty good. That may change, but I think it's pretty lenient at the moment. Again, I think it's all about roles. If you've got a good collection of players who all want to do a particular role, then the game facilitates that very well. And I think any kind of squad is actually going to need those specialists in each particular role. So it's particularly looking good. In terms of content, I think again, you hear on the PlayStation Network as well that it's going to be released November, December. It's difficult to see that because obviously there's a certain amount of content in the game that maybe makes me think that probably it won't be. I'd love to be proved wrong, but I think currently I would say it's not. I can't see how that's likely. But having said that, I think again it's going to be an emergent thing where I think over time more and more will be released, such as PvE and so on. Okay, so this is the boss in Warp. He's the bad guy who's been doing experiments on me. He's very good at opening doors. Okay, so this was the Warp on PlayStation Network. Very, very good game. Really enjoyed playing it, and hopefully you enjoyed that. Talk to you next time.